Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. It is Monday, March 24th. This is episode 182. Matt Roy, Don Harris, Bob Gambert, Javier, everyone alongside. Brackets are busted. What's going on, Don?
It's 41 degrees in here right now.
I was just telling you, it was 72 on Thursday. You weren't here for that one, so
I know.
You missed it. I was sweating.
You know,
it doesn't take much for
we
that,
complain a lot about how cold it is in here, but it's never been colder. This is the coldest episode.
This is not the coldest.
This is not the coldest episode.
Now. We've been down to 59 before.
Yeah, we were at like 50-something one time. It was not fun. Okay. I don't know why it's just this room is a freezer, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, back and better than ever on the Sneakers Cleats podcast for episode 182.
Brackets are not busted.
Some are. Actually, a lot of brackets aren't because of how chalky this tournament's been.
I noticed.
Chalky.
I noticed when I look at the standings, you're circling the drain down there with both of yours.
No, I'm in like fourth place with our bracket.
Oh, okay.
One of them's bad.
You bounced back, I guess.
Yeah, I had two in our bracket pool. That's why I did two. I did one that was kind of off the wall. That one's kind of screwed now because I had St. John's winning. But anyway, that's the only craziness that we've seen in this tournament so far. So anyway, subscribe to the YouTube channel, both News 4, Fox SA. If you're so inclined, download, rate, review the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I opened this podcast on Thursday by saying March is here, madness is near. I'd like to revise that to say March is here, madness is meh. Madness is non-existent.
It's not as mad.
It's not madness.
The Maryland final finish was great.
It's mediocre.
Yeah, there's not a lot of great buzzer beaters, not a lot of big upsets.
When there was a guy who bet every game in the first two rounds to not go to overtime. 48 games, he needed to not go to overtime to win his bet. He went 48-0. No game went to overtime. Like that's how you know that this tournament is a little meh. There's not a bunch of madness going on.
It's really top heavy.
There's no huge upsets except for McNeese over Clemson in the first round.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that in a second. It's just not a lot of Cinderella stories. And everyone's pointing back to NIL now. NIL and transfer portal, is it ruining the NCAA tournament? So we'll talk.
Load it up. Hey, during the pleasantries comment part right here,
yeah.
Can I give a quick shout out to the late great Bill Mercer died yesterday. 99 years old. Bill was widely known in San Antonio as the voice of world-class championship wrestling. Did the Von Erichs and all that stuff back in the 70s and 80s. He was the voice of the Dallas Cowboys at the Ice Bowl with Bart Starr. He was the voice of the Texas Rangers. And he was the longtime professor and mentor of the sports broadcasting program at the University of North Texas, where he was my mentor. Craig Way, the voice of the Longhorns, Mark Followell, the voice of the Mavericks, Dunham Miller, and so many others came through that program where we actually had play-by-play classes in football and basketball and baseball. And Bill was a great friend, lived to be 99. Bill Mercer covered the Kennedy assassination and was on TV live in black and white. And he was the one who informed Lee Harvey Oswald in that crowded Dallas police station that he had been charged with the murder of John F. Kennedy. And he's just a broadcasting giant, but a better teacher, mentor, and friend, and taught so many of these guys that have had great careers in sports broadcasting. And he will be loved and missed, and it's a huge story up in the Dallas area. And I just wanted to give my thoughts. I got to see him about a year ago. I went to see him in his assisted living facility, still going strong at 98 at that time. And just was glad that I got to see him one more time and tell him how much he meant to me. Got me my first job calling a paid gig doing Friday Night Football in Sulphur Springs, Texas. Did the Hopkins County Game of the Week on KDXE radio. I got paid $25 a game. It cost me $50 to drive back and forth. but I lost money on the deal, but it was such a great experience when I was 19, 20 years old.
Very well said. Very well said. Lost a legend.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we'll get to all the madness that happened, or lack thereof, this weekend. Plus, we'll get to the Spurs making a push for the play-in. 3 in a row for the Spurs after wins over the Knicks, the Sixers, and the Raptors. talk about them making the plan, the upcoming schedule, which is just a murderer's row of playoff teams, basically, and what this young Spurs team is showing everyone after the tumultuous season they've endured so far. Plus, we'll get Don's thoughts on the Greg Popovich article from last week, which we talked about on Thursday, but I want to get Don's take on it as well. So let's start with the NCAA tournament. So there's no mid-majors left in this tournament. The first round came and went without a 13, 14, 15, or 16 seed winning a game for the first time in many, many years. All of these teams in the Sweet 16 are from major conferences. I think there's 4 from the Big 12, 4 from the Big 10, 1 from the ACC, and 7 from the SEC.
From the SEC.
Including the Cinderella.
And the way the brackets work, they could have 6 of the Elite 8.
6 of the Elite 8.
Could be from SEC.
God, I hope not. There weren't any major upsets. The only team that is a double-digit seed remaining is Arkansas, who's also SEC.
Very good.
Who also has a top 10 coach of all time, one of the highest-paid coaches in the entire sport, and whose roster is filled with bye, Bob. Whose roster is filled with 4- and 5-star recruits. So it's kind of unreal that that's the only Cinderella, quote unquote, that we have in this tournament.
There's no
so far.
Cinderellas.
There isn't. I mean,
no.
The highest seed remaining has John Calipari as its coach.
Yeah. There are no Cinderellas in this tournament, and I think a lot of people saw it coming. I think you saw a lot of the experts have all 4 number ones in their Final Four, maybe 1, 2, maybe 1, 3, but the 1 seeds should hold true to form. Although Auburn got a bit of a scare, and Florida got a bit of a scare. Houston got a big of a
but even if Florida and Houston lost, the teams they were playing were Gonzaga, if you want to.
Gonzaga.
Yeah, Gonzaga. I don't want to be corrected by Kelvin Sampson.
Yeah.
Gonzaga and UConn, the 2-time reigning champs, who now are no longer reigning and defending. But still, they would have been upset by 2 other teams that would have been chalky.
Right.
Even then, you don't have the last few years have just spoiled us. FAU making the run to the Final Four with Dusty May and with I want to call him Kankar, but it's Golden, Vlad Golden.
Vlad Golden, who, by the way, went to Michigan with him.
Yeah, went to Michigan with him. Actually, there's 3 players from that Final Four team, that FAU Final Four team, who are all back in the Sweet 16 with different teams now, and Dusty May. But anyway, so you have that FAU run that made it to the Final Four. You had Oakland and Jack Golke lighting it up last year with a couple of upsets. Loyola of Chicago and Sister Jean, St. Peter's and Doug Eddard, the friggin' mustache kid that looked like he was the ball boy.
St. Peter's was fun.
St. Peter's was a lot of fun. UMBC knocking off Virginia a couple of years ago. Like, you had all of these things, and that's what makes the tournament so awesome, is that anybody can win a couple of games and get hot. And this year, you just have none of those teams. No one got hot enough to knock anybody off for a couple of rounds and even make it to the second weekend.
And I think part of it is those teams like UMBC or whoever that always had a senior that was really good, one guy that was carrying them. That senior is no longer on those teams because of NIL. If he's good as a sophomore, he gets picked up by one of the better programs and gets paid, and he leaves his smaller school. So I think we'll see less and less of that in the coming years.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a Cinderella basically capturing lightning in a bottle, as usual. I mean, and we've been close a little bit. Like last night, for example, CSU would have been the Cinderella that was left.
They were good.
12 seed would have upset Maryland, the 4 seed, in the second round because of a beautiful, gorgeous out-of-bounds play that opened up the 3-point shooter on the wing. Couldn't have been any prettier of a shot or a play. Yeah. 3.6 seconds left. Then Derek Queen, one of the highest-paid players in college basketball, and made it known.
How much does he make?
He makes quite a bit of money, and he made it known. Did you see his press conference afterwards?
Coach
paid us, and then his coach was just like, "Oh no."
No, he's supposed to. I mean, it's legal now.
It is. But I mean, it's just like it's like we were talking about earlier. It's still frowned upon to talk about it. I guess still taboo.
Yeah. How that Derek Queen does not have a NIL deal with Dairy Queen at this point,
honestly,
is beyond me.
Honestly, for everyone listening, if there is some audio issues, we're working on fixing that. That's why you saw Bob run in front of the camera a second ago. So we're working on fixing the audio.
I thought he was running to the bathroom the way he got up. I've never seen Bob move that fast.
He needed a smoke break.
I thought it was the coffee kicking in.
But anyway, it's disappointing. This is something I saw on Twitter from Evan Abrams, the director of research over at the Action Network. But the last 2 years, favorites of 6+ points entering the Sweet 16 are now 51-6 straight up. Sorry if there's people walking in front of the camera. That's just going to happen here while we're trying to fix this. 51-6 straight up. 26-2 this year of favorites that are favored by more than 6 points. Only 2 favorites favored by more than 6 points lost this year. That's McNeese and I can't remember the other team. And then 38-19 against the spread, 19-9 this year. Like you have the last 2 years, which has really been the meat and potatoes of this NIL transfer portal window, have been muting his mic, have really been so chalk heavy, so favorite heavy. The 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4 seeds are better now than they've ever been before because they're getting all the guys from the younger teams, the younger classifications, the lower classifications like a UTSA or I wouldn't be surprised if UTSA loses Spears this offseason.
Yeah, if you're any good at all, you get picked up.
And it sucks. Like Aiden Mahaney was at St. Mary's 2 years ago. I'll just use him as an example. Last year, actually. Aiden Mahaney was a star for St. Mary's over there. He goes to UConn. He's the 6th man on that team.
Yeah.
Like,
how about the kid at
Florida?
Houston that's from Oklahoma?
Yeah. Uzan.
Yeah. And then the kid from Texas Tech.
JT
who was
Toppin.
at New Mexico.
JT Toppin, yeah. But tell me this. JT Toppin was at New Mexico last year. If JT Toppin was on New Mexico this year, would they not be a better team?
Of course.
I mean, would they
but
not
would they not have
potentially beat Michigan State last night?
Yeah. But they don't have the money Texas Tech has.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
And that's
if it's a problem. It's not a problem for JT Toppin.
It's not a problem for JT Toppin. It's a problem for everyone who watches the tournament and wants something interesting to watch.
I don't know. I had no problem even with the Duke Baylor game yesterday. Like Baylor kept it close for the first half and then Duke pulled away. That was still some really good basketball. I got no problem with the better teams winning because I think at the end of the day, once we get to the Elite Eight, I want the Houston Duke matchup or I don't want the Colorado State Duke matchup in a Elite Eight.
And that's what normally happens is the teams get to the second weekend and they get trampled.
Yeah.
Like an SDSU a couple of years ago who makes it all the way to the finals doesn't happen every year. And they got killed in the finals by UConn because they deserve to get killed in the finals by UConn. Butler UNC from a decade ago, Butler was an 8 seed with Brad Stevens there. Like that doesn't happen every year. But what happens is that those teams make it to the second weekend and you have a whole week, this whole 4 days here where we don't have any games. We're talking about Jack Golke. We're talking about Doug Etter.
Yeah.
We're talking about FAU. We're talking about UMBC. Your sister Jean becomes a phenomenon. Like that's what makes the tournament so yummy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So delicious.
Good sidebars.
That's what we want. We want someone to root for.
I want 4 number 1 seeds in San Antonio.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I want to see the 1 seeds too. When they come to San Antonio in a couple of weeks, I want to see Duke. I want to see Florida. I want to see Alabama. I want to see all these big teams. But this weekend, when I'm sitting on my couch and watching the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, I want to see a Doug Etter and see if he can go off for 30 points and knock off one of these teams. Do I want to see him win? Maybe not, but I want to see entertaining Cinderella stories, and that's just not what we're getting.
That's understandable.
Will it ever come back? I mean, I don't
think so.
We live in a world of hyperbole now, which is unfortunate.
I don't see how it does.
Unless they get some regulation, right?
If you're a good sophomore, you're going to get picked up, and somebody's going to pay you to go play for a better team.
Well, like New Mexico, just using them as an example again. Donovan Dent. He's not going to be on New Mexico next year. Like,
I haven't kept up with him.
All right, so it's just these smaller guys. These Nick Clifford over at CSU. He's not going to be on CSU next year if he wants to stay in college.
That kid can play.
God, they're so good.
He's so
But
good.
it's the guy. That's what sucks is like you're almost auditioning for your next school in the tournament.
Every time you suit up, you are. Here's a thing that I want to bring up, Bob. Let me ask you too. I've heard this term like 20 times in the last week, and I swear I've never heard it before.
Chalky?
Chalkiest.
I had to look it up.
Really?
I hadn't heard it either.
You had not heard it.
I guess it's a big online gambling term.
It might be a betting term.
Yeah.
But,
It's brand new.
well, last year,
What does it mean?
it
Why?
means the favorites win.
Okay, but how does it have to do with chalk?
That's something that's above my pay grade.
Okay. If you
But
know, let us know.
The term comes from the favorites winning. Like last year was known as the year of chalk. UConn was the major favorite going into the NCAA tournament. They won.
When the favorite wins, it's chalky.
Correct.
Okay, I want to know the derivation of the word chalky that my teachers used to use on the blackboard.
All right.
So I looked up, and I used a little AI here. It
Okay.
originates from the old practice of writing odds on a chalkboard using chalk, with favorites odds being more heavily marked and smeared.
There you go.
Favorites odds being heavily marked and smeared.
Yes.
So back in the old days,
Yeah.
before computers, they put everything up
Put
on
everything on
chalkboards,
chalk.
right? So they
Okay.
would be chalky and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So chalky is not a new term. It's been around for a while. But last year,
Okay. I don't gamble.
last year was known as the year.
I'm going to heaven.
Last year was known as the year. I don't even want to talk about where I'm going. Last year was known as the year of chalk because UConn won the NCAA tournament. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl. The Dodgers were the favorites coming in. They won the World Series. The Celtics won the national
I get it.
the NBA championship. Everything was chalk. Everything was the favorites won.
Got it.
So that's why it's
Got it. I just
chalky.
wanted to know why that was the word used.
And so
Now
like,
we
if
know.
If your horse was a favorite, and the odds,
Yeah.
but you have to keep erasing and lowering the odds and lowering the odds.
Lowering the odds. So it's
Yeah.
very chalky.
chalky. Correct.
Okay.
So like this year, very chalky because 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4 seeds
Very
are
chalky.
dominating. Right now in the tourney, there's 4 1s, 3 2s, 2 3s, 3 4s, 1 5, 2 6s, and 1 10. I think the biggest Cinderella story right now would be BYU, and that's not even a Cinderella story. They just came from a different conference, and they're in the Big 12. But
They got good players. They got another good one coming next year.
man, Richie Saunders is phenomenal. I would be surprised if next year all these guys don't stay because you got AJ Diabanza coming in. I don't even know that's how you pronounce his name, but he's got a $10 million NIL deal with BYU, and they're going to be monsters next season with him in tow.
I want to know who's bankrolling the BYU. NIL.
Danny Ainge?
I don't know that he's got it.
He might.
I wonder if it's the church.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's not going to be. But I think that one's interesting because it's such a converse. It's such an inverse of what we're usually expecting. Like BYU can't play on Sundays. So the fact that they're in the tournament at all, they have to play those Thursday, Saturday matchups because they can't play on Sundays. And if they go to the Final Four, they won't have an issue with that, obviously, because it's Saturday, Monday matchups. But it's just those types of things are interesting to some people because it's outside of the norm.
Be selling a lot of ice cream on the Riverwalk.
Oh, hell yeah.
Look over there.
Oh, Bob going again. Damn it, Bob. You're making this really hard to edit for me today.
This is an adventurous podcast.
Honestly. Anyway, so I'll ask you one more question about this, Don. Don, if you could redo your bracket right now, you have Duke winning in your good bracket.
Yeah.
Your other bracket isn't so good.
Florida,
yeah, which almost lost yesterday. Yeah. So if you could redo, you had one pick, who would you pick to win the national championship right this second?
Duke.
Yeah, I think if I had to redo, it would be Duke too. Right now, I have Houston in my true sheet of integrity, which I really think is going to happen. I have Houston winning, but that's only because I have BYU getting to the Final Four, knocking off Duke. Because I really love BYU's team. I think they can shoot the lights out of it. They have great defense. Their center sucks at free throws, but besides that, they're really, really good.
I love Houston, and I'm rooting for Kelvin Sampson.
I want him to get one.
But here's the deal with Houston. We saw it rear its ugly head against Gonzaga where they blew the lead. They live by the three. In a 7-game series, they would be my favorite. But in a one and done, they're going to have an off shooting night. Can they survive that? And can they not melt down when the pressure mounts, getting the ball in bounds and making bonehead plays like they did to almost collapse the other night? If they can avoid that, I think they have as good a talent. Now Duke, golly, now we know that We knew Cooper Flagg is going to go number 1. We know Con Knippel's going the top 7.
I can't stop. I can't not laugh at his name.
I say Nep. Nipple. Kneppel.
Before you get to the rest of that, we were watching the Duke game at my house yesterday, and Jordan doesn't watch college basketball. She doesn't like college basketball. So I just have the game on, and she comes downstairs, and the first shot is Knippel. And she's like, what did they just say?
Yeah. I say Kneppel. But anyway, he's going to go in the top 7. Maluach is going to go in the top 10. So they got 3 top 10 draft picks on this team. And now we're hearing that Zion James and Isaiah Evans are both going to be top 20 draft picks. So Duke has 5 freshmen. Well,
no,
4
Zion James is not a freshman.
Yeah, 4 freshmen and a transfer that are going to be top 20 NBA picks. So they by far have the most talent, but they're young.
We've seen teams like that not win before.
Young teams.
Kentucky 10 years ago didn't win like that.
Kentucky anytime doesn't win like that because they all have one and dones. Freshmen don't usually win. But I think Duke's talent is just too good this time to overcome that. And that guy's John Shire's doing a heck of a job coaching those guys. The Flagg kid is so much better now than he was when I went and saw him.
December, right?
Yeah, November, December. He's so much better. Kneppel's so much bigger and better. He's put on about 15 pounds. He looks like a grown man now. He looked like a freshman 6 months ago. So I think their talent is too much to overcome. Maluach inside is a monster. Houston has good depth at the bigs. So does Florida. Florida has 3 7-footers that can play.
I think that Auburn's ceiling is the highest of any team.
You do?
But I don't believe that they're going to get to the Final Four.
I haven't been that impressed with them.
No, I mean, John Broome is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, Baker Mazzara, also phenomenal. Go ahead, Bob. I already got to cut it all up.
Florida, to me, has the highest upside with the Clayton Jr. and those bigs.
Yeah, they were on their deathbed yesterday, like against UConn. UConn had them, and UConn couldn't shoot a lick yesterday. They were up 61-58, and then they can't rebound on a couple of free throws, and Walter Clayton hits 2 threes that are just fading away from the wing.
He's special.
It was ridiculous. And then UConn almost didn't even cover that game, which they were up on the entire game. So I think if I had to choose a Final Four right now, it would be 3 of the number 1s and BYU, because I still think BYU has the best chance to beat Duke. But that's just because that's what I chose already.
Yeah.
My problem with Houston is they don't have any size. Juwan Roberts, their biggest, toughest guy, and he's a 6'8". Like, how are you going to deal?
Francis has some good size, but they're not big enough. Yeah.
But like, if they have to go up against Duke, they're going to get
they're
killed.
in trouble.
They're going to get killed against Duke. So anyway,
unless they shoot lights out from 3.
Yeah. So it's been I
love
love
LJ
this.
Crier's an experienced guard, but Proctor's playing one.
If Proctor goes 7 for 8, no one's going to beat him.
Yeah, he's playing great.
He couldn't miss yesterday. I am enjoying the tournament regardless, just because I love college basketball and I love this time of year. But I do hope that it comes back next year as a upset Central, just because it's a little bit more fun.
Yeah.
So let's get to the Spurs here, who are also on a win streak, 3-game win streak now for the Spurs after a big win, convincing win last night against Toronto.
Against their G League team.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, convincing win against the G League team. They almost blew it against another G League team in the Sixers on Friday night. Like, they should have been up like 30, but instead they were up 16, ended up down 8 in the fourth quarter, came back to win that game. But they had a convincing win against the Knicks on Wednesday night, I want to say is what that was. They're getting hot. They got 3 wins in a row. They have a murderer's row of teams coming up. But what do you think about the wins so far? Now at 31-40 30. It should be 31-39, I believe. I messed that up on the Super. But 2.5 games back of the play-in.
Well, I'm one of those that is not rooting for them to make the play-in. But I do like the development. I think it's positive to see the improved play by Devin Vassell, who struggled most of the year. I think Keldon's been much improved. I think, Mamu is really fun. That moment last week was awesome. And Steph Castle is the story of the year to me. Not just rookie of the year, but future all-star and point guard of the future, and really has matured. So I like the growth. I think it's beneficial going down the road, but be careful. Don't make the play-in because other teams are obviously trying harder to lose than you are. But I don't think that's going to be an issue because I see them getting hammered by Detroit, Cleveland.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a
State.
second. They have the toughest schedule to close the year that I've seen in a long time.
I'd like to see where it compares with other teams.
That I don't have, but I do have their schedule. Let's hear from Mitch Johnson first about the 3-game win streak and the consistency that his team is playing with before we get to the upcoming schedule.
I think just what you said, I mean, the defense and then moving the ball and playing together, but the consistency of it is probably 3 of our best stretches of playing, as consistent as we can for more of the 48 than, the other team or what we're trying to do. And I think that's where the guys get the credit for that. It's tough. The NBA game's long, and to be able to string together consistency among 48 minutes is the standard that we're just in ever pursuit of, and I think they've done a really good job recently of executing that.
I was talking to Zach the other day, and while we were watching the Sixers game, it just seemed like they were having fun. Like it seems like they're playing a more joyful, happy style of basketball right now. I don't know what that says about not having their stars on there, or if this is just a bunch of kids that don't know what they're don't know. Not how to win, but don't know what they're not doing. You know what I mean?
Well, there's no pressure. When everybody's kind of hoping that you lose, and is just as glad if you lose than when you win, it takes a lot of pressure off. Mm-hmm. And I think the fact that guys like Keldon and Devin and Jeremy are playing better, I think they feel some pressure being off and they're playing more free. And so I think they are having more fun. I think the Mamu game kind of sparked some of that.
Yeah, when you go for 34 points in 19 minutes.
Yeah, I think there's no pressure, and they know that most of them know they're coming back with an improved roster with Castle and Wemby,
De'Aaron,
and Fox as the big 3.
Potentially Pop.
Potentially. Yeah.
I think they've shown that they've shown they aren't willing to lie down.
There's some optimism there. Yeah.
I think, barring what happens in these next 12 games, whether they hit over on their win total or not, I don't think any of that matters at this point.
You're talking a lot of gambling. You got a lot of money on the line, I guess, man.
No, I just follow the odds because that's the way that the world works now.
What's the money line on their over under wins?
It's kind of
the live total.
It's jockey.
Whatever it is.
Live total, I don't know.
I don't know what a live total is.
So at before the season, everyone sets a line. Whatever the win total is, 36.5.
36.5. Okay.
Right now, you can bet live totals on the line throughout the season. I don't know what that is. If you riff for a second, I can find it.
It's okay.
But anyway,
would be higher or lower?
I think it would be lower because of what we're about to talk about. Let's throw that graphic up for me, Javier. This is the upcoming schedule for the Spurs. The next 12 games.
Loss.
10 of the
Seriously.
10 of the next 12 games, 10 of their last 12 games are against current playoff or play-in teams. And that includes Phoenix, who is currently the 10th seed in the West. It's at Detroit, at Cleveland, versus Boston, the top 2 seeds in the East. And then you have a back-to-back. You get Golden State at home. Then 2 days later, you get Orlando, who is no walk in the park. Then you're on a back-to-back at Denver. Then you play Cleveland again. And Portland's playing a lot better. You have to beat Portland because
they're on the road.
They're the team right above you in the standings for the play-in.
2 wins in there. That's 12 games?
I think there's 3 wins in there, but that's still 3-9 to close out the season. That is a murderer's row of teams.
Yeah.
You have a 4-game streak on the road. You have multiple back-to-backs. You get Golden State on a back-to-back twice.
Thank you, Adam Silver. Let's win the lottery.
Good Lord. They would need 6 wins to get over on their preseason win total, which I think we all wanted them to get to about 40, 41 is what we thought they would get to healthy. Right now, they're obviously not healthy without Wemby and De'Aaron Fox.
Wemby went down 20 games ago.
Exactly. We all thought the season was done, but they're fighting.
Yeah.
They're fighting, and they're going to have to fight a hell of a lot harder to win any of those games because Detroit is no pushover now. They're the 6th seed in the East, and you got some tough games. You're not beating Cleveland. You're not beating Boston. You're not beating Golden State. They might as well pack it in with that schedule.
Well, they are.
How are these wins affecting draft?
So at the end of the season, when you total up everybody's win-loss record, the odds, the amount of combinations you get in the lottery machine. So the worst team in the league gets X amount of combinations, and everybody else, it goes like a triangle. A V. Less combinations of lottery balls. So if you finish with the 5th worst record in the league, you get a lot less lottery. Now, most of the time it stays true to form. So if you finish with the 8th worst record, you're going to get the 8th pick. Every once in a while, a team moves up and they get into the top 3, and you're hoping that luck happens. But if not, you're stuck with the 8th seed versus the 12th seed, 12th pick. And there could be a huge difference in the amount of talent that's left between the 8th overall pick and the 12th overall pick. And sometimes teams screw it up. And, it's not an exact science. For instance, the Spurs chose Jeremy Sohan at 9, and the Thunder chose Jalen Williams at 12. Mm-hmm. And Jalen Williams is an all-star and is going to be for many, many years.
It's harder to hit on those picks from 8 to 16 than it is from 1 to 4.
Kawhi Leonard was the 15th pick.
Right.
I guess what I'm asking, though, is each one of these wins make it harder to win the lottery. Then.
Correct.
Yes. So the higher you go, the better your record, the worse your odds are to win the number 1 pick.
So what
Correct.
are you doing?
I know.
Trying to make the play-in, man.
I know. That's why they shut down. De'Aaron Fox went for 34, and the next day, I'm going to have my surgery now. Now, Mitch, by the way, you and the other guys go out and give it the old college try. But start Mamu Kelishvili and Malachi Branham.
I can't find the win total right now, but I can tell you the live odds to participate in the Western Conference play-in. So there's 4 teams obviously participating in the play-in, 7 through 10 seeds. The Spurs are 12th right now. 13th right now. They're 2.5 games back. Their odds to participate in the play-in are plus 10,000.
Wow.
It would be 1,000 to 1 to participate in the play-in because of that schedule that we just showed. It's not going to happen. $1 would net you $1,000 if you bet on that. So
I can do that math, man.
I know
there's some gambling, but I understand.
Or streaming. So
I understand 1,000 to 1.
10,000 to 1.
10,000 to 1.
Anyway,
that means you give me $10,000.
No,
right?
it's 10,000 plus 10,000 is 1,000 to 1 odds.
Okay.
So see. Anyway, congratulations to the Spurs on winning 3 games. I hope you lose the last 12. I'm sorry.
Keep playing hard, playing well, and growing.
Devin Vassell's playing a lot better, which is good.
That's great.
Real quick before we get out of here, we talked about it on Thursday. We didn't get your take on it, and I value your opinion when it comes to these things. So
Mark the tape. Mark the tape. Mark the tape.
Mark the tape. That hasn't been happening since I was in diapers. Mark
the digital stream.
We'll splice it up later.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll cut that clip for you and
Matt
send it to you.
values my opinion.
When it comes to this stuff.
Okay.
Put the caveat in there. So Coach Greg Popovich, the story that came out with by Michael C. Wright and Ramona Shelburne, wrote this very in-depth, very insightful piece last week on Greg Popovich. We talked about it on Thursday. Don, what was just give me 2 minutes real quick on what you thought of that article.
I thought they did a very good job. My guess is, by reading the rest of the story, that Keldon Johnson was the source for a lot of the information. And we got some details, which were nice, about some of the things that took place both when Pop first fell ill and secondly when he addressed the team. Little details like what he was wearing and where it took place and how the team felt and how he looked physically and what he did. And I think it's all confirms what we believed where Pop was on his recovery and what we had kind of heard. But there were interesting details that made you believe that he is recovering. He wants to keep coaching. It will be his decision. And he's making significant progress. They talked about his speech being a little slow. They talked that, but he was up on his feet. And so he wasn't like in a wheelchair or anything like that.
They did say it took him a few weeks to walk.
It did, but I'm talking about now.
Right.
Yeah, and we've heard things about him being around town and in restaurants and stuff like that. So, look, man, I think, and there's a lot of other people that I know in this business that cover the Spurs that don't think he was ever going to come back and still don't believe he's going to come back and think it was ridiculous to think he was going to come back because he was a 76-year-old man who had a stroke. I don't know. The more I hear about it and the more I know Pop, I think he wants to. And I think there's a lot of time between now and September or August when maybe they decide to make a decision. And he knows he's got to. He told them, this was one of the great details of the article, that I'm not going to come back unless I'm 100%. And I think that Pop thinks he's somewhere less than that, but that he's working towards that. And I think in Pop's mind's eye, he believes he can get there. That's what pounding the rock is all about, right? So he's pounding the rock every day, and he's hoping that one day it splits. And it will be before next season. And that's, look, I just want what Pop wants. And I think he's earned that. I know there are people that are eager to see some change or to see a new iteration of Spurs basketball. I want that guy to coach as long as he wants to because he brought our city 5 championships. And his culture building, and Tim Duncan was mostly responsible for it, but it's Pop's program, and we owe it to him to let him do this on his terms.
Yeah, and the other part of that article, and I think the quote that they used throughout was, it's Pop's decision.
It's Pop's decision.
And he's earned that.
Amen. 100.
So, I mean, like we said on Thursday, it's all about his health. Like anything that will elongate his life. If he feels good enough to come back, and he feels healthy enough to come back, that it will not be a detriment to his health, it's his thing.
I think there are those who love him and those who want what's best for him, who believe that not coaching is what's best for him, and who have probably told him that. But they also respect that it's his decision and they'll go with what he wants.
I think they also detailed really well the almost falling in love with the game and teaching that happened a couple of years ago when he started getting younger. Like not him, but his team started getting younger.
Yeah, we knew that during the lockout and then right after.
I think they did a good job of showing that and like bringing back some of those old quotes that he had during the 2020-2021 season.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody took him at his word when he said, I'm going to retire when Tim Duncan retires. That was just tongue-in-cheek. Anybody who knows Pop. And here's another thing that's absolutely true, right? When he got up at the Hall of Fame and somebody asked him, why do you keep doing this? He said, the money. And he laughed, and everybody laughed. He wasn't joking, okay? He makes $17 million a year. He flies on charter jets, stays in Ritz-Carlton hotels, bills expensive wine back to the team, and he's got a program that's basically on cruise control. The Mitch Johnsons of the world and others do all the scouting. RC and Brian do all the front office stuff. He's earned that. He's built it. And he's got a great job. And by the way, he loves what he does. He loves coaching the young 19-year-olds because the 20-year-olds because they keep him young. So why would you give that up? Oh, well, he's got plenty of money. Dude, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? What am I going to do if I retire? I don't play golf. I don't, what am I going to do? Instead, I can go play basketball in the mornings and coach basketball and fly on private jets and go to Ritz-Carltons and coach basketball games in the NBA and make $17 million a year. Do you know what that is a month? Every 2 weeks, what the check looks like?
No, but I'd love to. That's why Don keeps me around. Keep him young.
Why would you do anything else? Keep going, Pop.
That's why Don loves hanging out with me and Zach, who keep him young.
That's right. And
All
you
right.
value my input.
Sometimes.
My opinion.
Sometimes. Other times. Most times I disregard
I heard it. Play it back, Javi.
Most
Play
times
it
I
back.
disregard it. Anyway, that's all we got for today on the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. Apologies for all of the technical difficulties. We will be better on Thursday. Remember to download, rate, review the podcast. It'll be out in just about an hour and a half once I cut Bob out of it and walking across the camera all those times. Yeah, people love seeing Bob. Anyway, we'll be back on Thursday. See you then.